Welcome back to the next part of the Hack and Slash tutorial series. In this video, we're going to work on the AI controller and setting up the blueprint and the behavior trees for our AIs. There isn't really a whole lot to showcase with the AI controller because we don't have an AI that can move and we don't have a behavior tree with the functionality in it. But we did also implement and create a spawner. So as you see, there's this big box. If the player enters, enemies will spawn. See, I enter and three dummy enemies can spawn. Now we could also edit the amount of enemies that get spawned. So if I select spawner here and we search for enemies, I can change the amount of enemies to spawn. I can also change the type of enemy. And so this is a really dynamic spawner here. It works, it will always spawn the enemy on the ground. Now the only big important thing is that we do also have the nav mesh bounce volume so AIs can move. And so if you guys want the project files, join me on Patreon. Without further ado, let's start it. So welcome back to the next part of the Hack and Slash tutorial series. In the last one we worked on the rage mode and added functionality for that. In this video we're going to start working on the AIs and setting up everything up. And to start off, we're going to work on the AI controller, and then we're going to finish off with a spawner. So in our enemies folder, we could make a new folder and call it AI controller. And let's make an AI controller blueprint class and call it BP_AI base. So this would be a base controller, and we can make child class controllers of it. But I think for this project or this scope, we're just gonna make one, but this will allow you to make multiple child classes. And so right here we are going to need a couple things, but let's leave it at that for now. Let's also make a behavior tree, so make a folder for that. Inside artificial intelligence, make a behavior tree. This one's going to be for our melee. And for behavior trees, we're going to have to make separate ones for every different enemy type. There isn't a way we could like make individual behavior trees and like have those behavior trees be implemented in more bigger trees, but this is just a simple way of doing it. Inside the AI controller, we could also make the blackboard base here. Call this BB. Just call it enemy. And all enemies should share the same blackboard, typically anyways. Let's plug that in here. And that should be good for now. We will start implementing our AIs in the next video, but let's set up a spawner so we don't have to do that later. So inside our enemies folder, let's make another blueprint class. It will be an actor and call it BP_spawner. And so what we're gonna need is a box collision. And then we're gonna need some targets. Let's see, we should be able to get a skew scene component. Yeah, so then we can get a scene. Right, and we can move the scene wherever we want. We can duplicate this. And so I'm pretty sure we could. Let's see, let's pull one in and let's see how it looks. Pull one in. We could still select our scenes. If we can enter our keyboard. There we could add a target in here, and I'm hoping we can add that in the behavior tree in our blueprint as well, but apparently not. Let me double check, just make sure I typed it right. Target. Yeah, we can't. Which is a big bummer. So let's see, let's try something else. So first thing first, what this box is gonna do is it's gonna see whether or not the player entered it or not. So here we're gonna hit begin overlap, and we're gonna get the actor and we're gonna cast it to BP_hack/character. And if it is true, then we start spawning our enemies. And so let's make a custom event and call it spawn. And then on the troop end, we're just gonna spawn. So let's see, let's get spawnables. Nope. Let's see, get movable, get navigate, random location and navigatable radius. So what we're gonna do is, can we mesh data? Let's see, you need an origin, so we're gonna get actor location, and then for radius, I guess we can make that a variable, which will be a float. And what we're gonna do is spawn our actors at a random location within this radius. I think it would work, so let's try that. We're gonna do a spawn actor from class, and what we're gonna do is always spawn, or adjust location but always spawn the class. Let's do our dummy for now, so repeat dummy. And then for our transform, split this. Not great. Let's split it. Split, and then let's plug it in the location. Now for the rotation, what we're gonna do is grab our character. So what we're gonna do is promote this to a variable and call this player. And what we're gonna do is find look at directions. For the rotation, we're gonna do find look at rotation. And our target would be our player get actor location. And then our star would be our regular, or this actor's get actor location. Actually, it'd be better if we do it this way. So we spawn the enemy, but then what we're gonna do is just set actor rotation, just so we can get a actor rotation, and then we can also get the actor location. And then we need to split this one. We're gonna make rotator. This one's gonna get plugged in through here. The pitch is also gonna get plugged through. And then we're gonna do find, or I think we copied it, so we can paste this in. And then we want to find look at rotation. So look at rotation. Target would be our player location, and then the find look at will need to be split, and then the yaw will be placed in here. So I think this would work, but hypothetically anyways. So let's increase the radius to maybe like 100. Now what we could also do is have a we could also have a sphere. So we want to draw debug sphere, just so we can see how big this radius is actually. So let's see, let's straighten all these out. What we're gonna do is we're going to right here, we're gonna type in draw debug sphere. Right here, the center will be get actor location, and then the radius would be this radius here, which is also 100. And I'm gonna make the segments like 18, just so we can get a good amount of lines to show the sphere. Duration, I'm going to set it to 10. Line color, I'm going to set it to red. And then thickness, I'm going to set it to 5. Now when these unplug the spawn for now, I just want to see if the debug sphere will actually show. So I'm going to delete this point, I'm going to pull this one in. And for the line for the box, I'm actually going to show it in the game, and I think I can do that through here. So visible, then I want to do line thickness, I want to do line thickness of 5, and then I want to stretch this all out. So I also need to make this hidden in game to be false. Show game. There should be a setting for this. Show. Visible. Let's see. There should be a way to see this in game. Shift color, dynamic, visible, hidden game. There it is. Untick that. And boom. Now we see it. Now if we walk in, we should see a sphere spawn. There you go. So that would be the radius in which an enemy would be attempted to be spawned at. So we could change that. So let's increase the size on here. Let's increase the radius. Maybe something around 500. Let's also lower the thickness to like 3. Let's try again. As you see, now in this radius, the enemy will spawn. Now you'll have to tweak this in the settings here. You can see if you search up radius, you should be able to. Oh, I didn't set it. So let's open this and then expose on spawn. And then now you can tweak this radius. Now this radius will be where a random point will be picked and where an enemy will attempt to spawn. So now let's plug in the spawner and let's see if it works. Yeah, so the enemy did get spawned, but he's in the middle of the air. Set active rotation. Other actor set. Oh, we should set the actor first. We should set our player character and then we should set the, and then we should spawn because we're using the variable in the event. Now let's see. So we shouldn't get any more errors in that regard. Yep, but our enemies are in the air, which shouldn't make sense. So nav data filter class, navigation query, or we should actually add a nav mesh first. Nav mesh bounce volume, because I think that's probably the reason why, because there's nowhere's navigable right now for the AIs. So let's stretch this out, bring it up a little bit, and hit P just so you can see it. Nice. So good. Now let me change this real quick. Let me select this to none, and now we should see the enemy spawn on the floor. There you go. So now the enemy spawns on the floor, and that is correct. So that's a simple spawner. So as you can see, you go in and out, and it will spawn and it will face the character's direction. Very simple spawner. Now what I also want to do is spawn multiple enemies, not just one, because now this one is only able to spawn one enemy. So what I'm going to do is make an struct. So what a struct is like a special variable that can store multiple information. So in here in the enemies, we're gonna make a new folder called struct. Now inside of blueprints, there should be a structure. We're gonna call it F enemy spawn info or spawn amount. And the first one is going to be enemy class. And then this one's going to be a base enemy. And it's going to be a class reference because our spawner, this needs a class reference instead of an object reference. We need the class reference. We also need to add another variable. It's going to be an amount, which is going to be an integer. We're going to save that. We also should make this class an array. Or array. So an array of enemies. And then actually we can make it a mapping. If we make it a mapping, hold on, let's see. If we make it a mapping, this can be an array that has the amount. So I don't think we need to have a struct. So let me delete the struct. I don't think we need it. We can just make a map variable. So let's delete this. So inside our spawner, let's make a variable and call it enemy to spawn, I guess. Enemies to spawn. And then we're gonna make this make it a base enemy class type. BP base enemy class type. We're gonna make it a map, and then it's gonna be binded to an integer. We're gonna compile, and what we're gonna do is add, and so we can select our class, and then we can select the amount. So I want to spawn 5 dummies. And so what we're going to do is on the spawn, we're going to get, or there should be a way to get set enemies to spawn. We need to find or contains, clear, length, remove, values, operators, divide, equal. We don't need any of those. Guess we can find. Get, is there a get? Length. So there's a length. Utilities, maps, add, clear, find, contains is empty, not empty, keys. So keys, there it is. So we're gonna grab our keys and we're gonna loop through it. So it's gonna loop through every enemy class. So we're gonna find. So we're gonna do a for each loop. It's for each loop, for each loop. Plug this in. And we're going to find the class type. And then it will give us a index. Right? Actually, we should have another. Should be find contains length value. What's this? Integer, value integer associated with the key if it was found. So don't think this is the right one. Find is not the right one. There should be another one. Contains is empty. Values, is that it? So this is the keys and this is the values. Is there a way to get the values itself based on the key? There should be, because in C++ there is a way to do it. Let me see if there should. Is empty, key spot length, remove values. Operators, add, equals, greater than, multiply, subtract, values. Okay, very interesting. So we have all our keys and then we have the values, but we can't get corresponding value for our keys. Oop. Or add, clear, contain, find is empty, not empty, keys, length, add. So we can add, which then, how do we get? So give me 1 second, let me see how you can get this to figure out real quick. So it looks like I was doing it right. So this find does give us the value of our mapping. So if I set this back to 5, this int will give us this value 5 for our first key, which is our dummy, and then we'll just go down the loop. So we are doing things correctly. Now here, we're also gonna need another for loop. We're gonna need a for loop, not a for each loop. There's a bit of a difference there, but in here, we're going to do, let's see, a start at 0, and then we end at 5. So we're gonna actually start at 1. So we should have 5 enemies spawn. And so what we're gonna do is here, I'm gonna do print string, and then I'm gonna say hello. So I should get 5 hello prints if this is correct. Yep, so I got 5 hello prints. Correct. Awesome. So now we can actually plug this in to our functionality here. And what we're gonna do is, instead of selecting a class here, we're gonna plug it in through here. So what this basically does is we loop through our map, and then we grab the values, and then we're gonna spawn that many enemies based on our variable. So my input is 5 for our dummies, so I should have 5 dummies spawn when I enter the sphere or enter the box. Boom. So 5 enemies just spawned. If I walk out and walk back in, 5 more just spawned. So yeah, it's working perfectly. Now let's change this to like 10. Let's see if we can get 10 enemies to spawn. Boom, 10 enemies just spawned just by walking in. Awesome. So now this is working really well. Now I'm gonna expose this into the world and expose on spawn so we can edit the amount of enemies that spawn. I'm gonna set this to 3 just for testing purposes. And so what I want to do is select our spawner, and I'm going to move it out here and increase the size a little bit. So let's check the radius real quick. Radius is quite small. Let's bump that up to 900. See how that looks. Boom. So yeah, nice. So of course these aren't moving enemies, so these enemies won't be doing a whole lot. And another thing you want to do, if you don't want the player to keep walking back and forth into the box, we could set a boolean here. So on completed, right here, we're gonna set a boolean b call completed. And what we want to do is the second we call spawn, we want to set completed. So that way we will not be able to spam it or find any time to reset it and call this spawn function twice. Or we could actually just do this. Just do a do once node. Do once node. Boom. Very simple. So we don't need a boolean value or variable. So we can only spawn enemies once into the world. Boom, this only works once. If I leave and I walk back in, doesn't happen again. Alright. So we have an AI controller, we have a spawner, and we're gonna set up all the functionalities in the next video once we start working on our enemies. And so I'll see you guys in the next one.